Hello, Mario here. I wanted to share something with you that I hope will be an encouragement to you. I guess I'm going to start with the Bible verse, and then I'm going to read you another thing that I read, and it made me think of a bunch of things that ultimately were encouraging to me, and so I hope that it will be encouraging to you. So let me start with Romans chapter 12, starting in verse 4. This is one of my favorite Bible passages. It says, "Now as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function, in the same way, we who are many are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another. According to the grace given to us, we have different gifts. If prophecy, use it according to the standard of one's faith. If service, in service. If teaching, in teaching. If exhorting, in exhortation. Giving with generosity. Leading with diligence. Showing mercy with cheerfulness." I love this passage because it says, just like there is a human body that has different parts and not all the body parts have the same function, so there are different parts in God's body, in Christ's body, that have different parts. You've got exhorters and teachers and leaders and givers. And the idea behind that is it's not every individual person's job to do everybody's job. Everybody has a part to play, but not everybody plays everybody's part. So the thing that reminded me of this concept was this article by a pastor that I like a lot named John Piper. The article that he wrote was about the topic of racism, but the part of it that I'm going to read to you is actually an illustration in the article where he stopped talking about racism for a second and he started talking about COVID-19. And he's using COVID as an illustration. So let me go ahead and read you the part about COVID, then I'll read you the part about racism, and then I'll explain what I think this has to do with us. So when he's talking about COVID-19, he's talking about how there are different people in the world who are fighting this disease. And he says, one person is fighting it in the research laboratory, 18 hours a day. One person is fighting it as a doctor or nurse on the ground with his hands in the blood. Another person is a politician doing his best to discern what policies might best hinder the spread of the disease. Another person is giving people guidance and hope with the biblical interpretation of God's providence and comforting those who have lost loved ones. And then he makes this comment. He says, how mistaken it would be for the doctor who is risking his life in intensive care to say to the researcher who has never touched a diseased person, stop wasting your time in the laboratory. Get in here where the suffering is and get your hands dirty. So let me pause there. That makes sense, doesn't it? That he's saying if there are different people that are trying to handle this issue of COVID, the doctor in the emergency room should not say to the person who's trying to create a vaccine, hey, you're not doing anything to help. Well, that's not true. The researcher that's in the laboratory trying to create the vaccine is trying to help, but in a different way than the ER doctor is trying to help. Well, after he makes that illustration, John Piper then applies that idea to racism. He says, and I quote, "And the same is true for racism. One Christian might fight that evil in the street, another in the courts, another as a mother raising loving and respectful children, another as an academic historian unfolding the way race was constructed as an instrument of oppression, another preaching the whole counsel of God." And so his point there is there are multiple ways to fight this thing that we call racism. And the person who is working on the street or at the ground level at a nonprofit organization is doing something different than maybe what an academic who's writing academic papers on racism is doing. And if you've got one Christian that's doing one of these things, maybe he's writing academic papers or she's writing academic papers about it, and someone else is working at a nonprofit and trying to help people that are dealing with something, and then some other person is an attorney who's trying to fight for the rights of people in court, and then maybe you have another person who is a mom, and she's just trying to help the lady who lives across the street from her, who is a different ethnicity than her. And she's just decided, hey, that person who looks nothing like me, I'm going to love her and care for her. And it would be a mistake for all of those people to look at each other and go, you're doing nothing about racism. Well, no, all of them are doing something. They're just all doing a different something. And once I read that, it dawned on me, that applies to almost every topic. There are lots of things that people do something, but it doesn't mean it's the same something that someone else does. And so when it comes to like dealing with the issue of abortion, there may be someone out there who says we need to pray about it, and someone else who says, no, we need to picket the abortion clinic, and someone else says, no, we've got to get certain candidates into office, and someone else who says, no, we've got to influence the culture at a broad level with movies, or no, we've got to preach about it and do Bible studies. And those people can't all look at each other and going, you're doing nothing, you don't care about this. No, everybody's doing their thing. The reason why I thought that was helpful is because it made me realize it's not everybody's job to do everybody else's job. And that's what reminded me of Romans 12. We have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function. It's not the ear's job to do the mouth's job, right? And it doesn't mean the ear doesn't care about what's going on when it's not doing what the mouth does. In the same way, we who are many are one body in Christ and individually members of one another. And then he goes on to show that if someone's gift is serving, they should serve. And if someone's gift is teaching, they should teach. And if someone's gift is exhorting, they should exhort. And if someone's gift is giving, they should give. So not everything is everybody's job. The reason this was encouraging to me is, and I know this will not apply to all of you, but there may be a few of you that you have a personality like mine. There are times when I do things that I think God has called me to do and things that I think God has wired me to do and gifted me to do. And I do those things. And then sometimes I feel like that's not enough. And I look at other things that maybe are not the places God has put me, or they're not the giftings that God has given me. And then I go, oh, but I'm not doing that. You may find this hard to believe, but I think there have been weeks and months in my life where I look back at the week or I look back at the month and I can see that I was leading the church and leading meetings of people and doing a good job, and I preached a sermon that people came up to me afterwards and they said, thank you so much, Mario, that changed my life. And I met with people and I counseled them and I was trying to help them living their life, and after I counseled them they said, thank you so much, that was so helpful. And then I look back at a week like that and I look at all the stuff I did, and sometimes honestly I can do this, I can go, but I didn't do anything to help the poor this week. But I didn't do anything to, I didn't pray enough this week. I didn't serve in this particular way this week. And I know not everybody does this, but I think there are some of you out there, and maybe this video is for you, that when you look back at your Christian life over the past week or month or year, it's a lot easier for you to notice the list of things that I didn't do than it is for me to see the list of things I did do. And sometimes I forget that it's not everybody's job, and it's not my job in particular to do everybody's job. And so sometimes I will do things and then despair that I didn't do other things. And I'll sit there and go, well, I guess I'm not a very good Christian, because look at all these good things that I didn't get done this month. And so for some of you, if you're like me, I think it might be helpful for you to be reminded, as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function, in the same way we who are many are one body in Christ. It is not your job to do everybody's everything, and you do not need to despair. You probably do not need to despair over the list of things that you have not got done, and instead do what God has called you to do. I hope that's helpful for somebody today. Thanks for listening.